Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Whoa, hello everybody. Let me get that logo out of there. There we go. Now we can see each other. Welcome back to the Maverick News channel, everybody. Great to have everyone here tonight. Axe the tax, the carbon tax. That's the number one thing on people's minds, I think, across Canada. We have Vladimir Putin saying that any F-16s provided by NATO to Ukraine will be destroyed. We have digital health ID rolling out in Western Canada. We have artificial intelligence being regulated by the federal government in the United States, and a whole lot more. And when we come back right after this, we're going to go live to Ottawa and pick up Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He's meeting with the Premier of Manitoba. We'll pick up his comments, because that's all circling back to that big issue, the carbon tax in Canada, which takes effect, the carbon tax increase on Monday, which should be accompanied by protests.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, let's go off to Ottawa right now and pick up this with Pierre Poilievre. He just met with the Premier of Manitoba. We have a lot of international stuff tonight. We have stuff from the U.S. We have White House stuff. We have all kinds of stuff, but this is happening right now. So let's pick this up. This ties into the whole carbon tax thing.
Énergie pour ses citoyens. Et évidemment, celles sont des priorités que je partage. C'est ça le gros bon sens et je suis prêt à travailler avec n'importe qui, n'importe où, de n'importe quel parti politique provincial afin de l'accomplir. Merci beaucoup. Now in English. Thank you very much, everyone, and it is great to be here in beautiful, sunshiny Manitoba today and to have met with the province's new Premier, Poilievre-Cano. We had a great discussion. I shared with him my common sense plan to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. I emphasized the forthcoming 23% April Fool's Day tax hike that Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh are imposing on Manitobans, a tax hike that will make it harder for people to eat, heat, and house themselves, force seniors to choose between their medications and filling their fridge with groceries, a tax that will kill jobs and drive businesses out of our country to the United States, a tax that will harm our farmers and force us to buy more expensive and less nutritious foreign food rather than lower cost and higher quality Canadian food. And I emphasize the importance of spiking the hike and axing the tax. I've also talked about the need to build the homes. After 8 years of Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, the housing costs have doubled to the point where young people can't start families anymore. In fact, people worry they might lose their homes. It takes 25 years in Toronto to save for a down payment. And I met a young guy who works at WestJet as I was getting off the plane. He said he makes $50,000 a year and he can only afford a one-bedroom. He and his wife are expecting a newborn. They don't know how they're going to raise a child in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, but they can't afford anything else after 8 years of Trudeau funding local bureaucracies that block home building. And my common sense plan is to incentivize municipalities to speed up and lower the cost of building permits, free up land, to let us build, sell 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land so that we can build homes that will be affordable. We need also, to make life affordable, we need to fix the budget. Inflationary deficits drive up the cost of living and the interest that we pay. And we need to cap spending and cut waste to balance the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates. We need to bring those costs down in safe communities. We need to bring in jail and not bail for repeat violent criminals, treatment, not more drugs for people who suffer from addiction, and stronger borders, not bans on hunting rifles to keep us safe from guns. I shared these views with the Premier. I won't speak for him other than to reiterate what he's already said publicly. He's focused on making energy more affordable, and so he has said that he wants to exempt Manitoba from the carbon tax, and I agree with that. I want to exempt everyone from the carbon tax. He has said publicly that he supports more road building, and I assured him that I share that priority. We need strong roads in this big, vast country of ours. and he said he wants to have more economic development. I shared my agreement with him on that as well. We need to reduce the obstacles so that we can dig more mines, harvest more forestry, launch our ships from more ports, and bring home more paychecks for our people. So I thank the Premier for making time for me and reiterate my belated congratulations on his victory. I will be leading a meeting with local progressive conservatives as well, and we'll meet with any provincial leaders of any party who share our common sense goals of axing the tax, building the homes, fixing the budget, and stopping the crime. Thank you.
We'll hang in there. We might have some questions that will relate to the tax and the housing crisis. And I do want to comment on the housing crisis and the new Trudeau plan.
First of all, he works for the people of Manitoba, not for me. So he doesn't need me to be. He doesn't need my satisfaction. I'll say that right out of the starting gate. I appreciate that he's brought in a gas tax cut, and that he's called for the federal government to exempt Manitoba. The fact is that Manitoba produces a phenomenal amount of green energy through its hydroelectricity, and a carbon tax will come nowhere near the environmental benefit of expanding that energy source. I believe in green lighting, green projects. Let's make clean, green hydroelectricity even more affordable, rather than trying to make traditional energy we still need more expensive. As for the Premier's view on the April Fool's Day Trudeau tax hike, he can speak for himself. He's more than capable, and I'm happy to work with him and anyone to bring home lower prices for Canadians.
Mr. Poilievre,
Yes.
you've been elected for Premier for a lot longer than I think a lot of us expected. Can you talk about what kind of rapport you had, bonding, what was that?
Well, he's a very impressive person. He's very knowledgeable, and he has a very ambitious set of goals, and I share a lot of them. He wants to develop our resources. He wants to help make prices more affordable. He believes in building roads, so I enjoyed spending time with him, to be honest. I'm obviously a conservative. He's obviously a New Democrat, but that doesn't mean we can't share priorities and have good conversations together, and so I think it was a good meeting.
I'm not sure if the subject came up, but equalization is a big chunk of Manitoba's budget. Regardless of political strength, the province has always received equalization. Would a conservative government make any changes to the formula for equalization or to the amount of money available?
You'll have to wait for our platform to get our plans on all of these types of subjects. I think we all share the goal of enriching all the provinces by unleashing the free enterprise economy, so that we develop more revenues to fund our programs. We need, I think, we need a stronger economy that can fund our social programs. And that means removing the government gatekeepers that block resource development, clearing the way to build more private market housing, axing the carbon tax so our small businesses can generate more wealth for all of us. These common sense approaches will empower us to fund more generous and caring social programs. I think it's great. I think the provinces that have cut energy taxes, or in Saskatchewan's case, refused to collect the carbon tax on heat, have had the lowest inflation in the country, which proves when you lower the cost of energy, you lower the cost of everything. And I'm in favor of cutting taxes on energy. And that's why I will axe the tax, in addition to which I will cut income taxes so that people pay less and bring home more. we support the $20 million, and I can only imagine, sorry, I should say I can't even imagine what these families are suffering. You know, all of us would agree that if we had a loved one missing, that we would want the government to do everything in their power to find the remains. And at the same time, common sense conservatives think the best way to honor the memory of those who are lost is to ensure these kinds of tragedies don't happen anymore. We have to reform our criminal justice system to stop repeat violent offenders from going into the street and victimizing and killing our most vulnerable. And that is why we will bring in jail and not bail for repeat offenders. We'll make it harder for violent offenders to get bail. They will serve stronger sentences, and we will keep the most dangerous people behind bars to protect our most vulnerable people from those horrific crimes.
Last question, please.
So one more.
You've expressed support for the dissatisfaction that Alberta's roundly expressed for the legalization program. So for a legalization province like Manitoba, what do you say to provinces that say, well, this is enshrined in the Constitution?
Let's start with the fact that Alberta's major grievance is that with the economic federation is that the federal government is attacking our biggest industry by attacking the energy sector, killing the Tech Frontier mine, the Northern Gateway pipeline, the Energy East pipeline, imposing massive carbon taxes on Alberta and Canadian small businesses. The feds have been undermining Alberta's ability to contribute to Confederation. And I think the best way we can bring fairness to Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, Interior, Newfoundland and Labrador, the oil and gas producing provinces, is to get rid of the unconstitutional Bill C-69, the No Energy Law. By getting rid of that law, we'll empower Albertans and all Canadians to produce more energy here at home, clean, responsible Canadian energy, rather than bringing in dirty products from dictatorships around the world. I want to bring it home to our country, and that'll be the choice in the next election on energy and on oil and gas. Justin Trudeau and the NDP want taxes. I want technology. Justin Trudeau and the NDP want to put a stop sign in front of our workers. I want to green light green projects. Justin Trudeau and the federal NDP want to bring in more dirty dictator oil and energy. I want to bring home the production and more powerful paychecks for our people in this country. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
So, two contrasting visions for the future, centered around energy. Poilievre focused on growth and domestic energy production. That's at the heart of this carbon tax increase that we are going to see Monday, Canada-wide, which will add more cost at the pump, more cost to heat your home. And speaking of homes, Poilievre addressing the housing crisis in Canada, mortgages, the cost of homes more than doubling under Justin Trudeau's administration. And yesterday we heard his plan to address the housing crisis and home ownership. And in fact, there was really nothing in the plan to address home ownership. It was all focused on renting. His solution, the only thing that he provided yesterday for people aspiring to one day own their own home, was a new plan that will allow renters to use their rental history, their rental payment history, toward their credit score. So if you pay your rent on time, that information will be collected, and then you can use that. That will be taken into consideration if at some point you ever manage to scrape together enough money for a down payment on a home. That's his plan. As I looked into it more last night, the truth of the matter is there are already private plans that you can sign up for to voluntarily make that information available and to have that information collected by a third party and then have that presented to a bank, and you could use that already as credit toward a credit score. And it is actually done in some jurisdictions in the United States as well. The idea is not really new. But here's the flip side of that, and I'll have to look into this more. But if the government starts to automatically collect information on your rental payment records to determine, to track you, essentially, they're going to track you and keep a record of your rental payments to determine if you're paying on time. If you're not, that same information could be used against you when you go to get a mortgage. People should remember that as well. The banks will look at all of that, and they are not obligated to give you a mortgage. And your mortgage rate is always determined based on your credit score. And your credit score, if you're... The other thing that this could do is if you have trouble paying your rent, and I'm just thinking out loud, but if you don't have a great record of paying your rent on time, if you miss a few payments here and there, that can affect your credit score in other ways. For a credit card, for a car loan, for anything. So that's a double-edged sword. That, in my view, is not really going to do a whole lot to address the real issue of shrinking real discretionary incomes, shrinking real income, inflation, rising interest rates, a decline in the value of the dollar, all of these economic challenges, and a new economic reality where young people in particular may, according to the most recent studies, may never be able to afford to buy their own homes. And that's the best that they came up with yesterday. Justin Trudeau and Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Interesting as well, you know, she stood beside him yesterday, and let me see here. She's standing beside him yesterday, and I noticed this. I didn't say anything about it, but it is getting attention on social media again, and that's her Twitch or Tick, whatever it is. She does this a lot. I don't know what it is. Look at the way she jerks, and what is it with Chrystia Freeland? Why does she do that? It's the strangest thing. And she continued to do that while he stood there and took questions from people. I don't know. It's the... I don't know if it's... I could only sit here and guess. No idea what that's about. But as Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, met today in Manitoba with the new premier out there, and he just talked about that. I'm going to rewind just a little bit here briefly because in Manitoba they are rolling out a new digital health ID. That's of major concern for a lot of people. I know it is. Any kind of digital ID, a lot of people are concerned. I've had people messaging me all day about it. Concerned that because it's digital, at some point, if you're not a good little citizen, the government might in some way be able to deny you service or track you in some way. How exactly this new digital health ID in Manitoba might affect people, not entirely clear. Not entirely clear. So I just had some audio playing in my headphones there that was completely unrelated to anything that I'm talking about. So that's it's always a little confusing when that happens. A little difficult to keep on talking because you've got another subject in your head. So yeah, that's a major issue for people. The digital ID. It isn't happening yet, but it has been announced in Manitoba by the government out there. And again, the carbon tax, a major issue. This is a twofold news conference that took place with the new premier of Manitoba, who was at a clinic making a healthcare announcement, a new funding announcement for clinics, and also addressed this issue of energy production. And of course, it all comes back to this big carbon tax increase that we're going to see on Monday. Here he is.
When you were running last when I grew up, you made a commitment that if grocery stores didn't lower their prices as a result of you lowering the gas tax or taking it off, you would do something about it.
So Manitoba, they're compensating by lowering the provincial portion of the tax, and they already have. And that has had some...
So on January 1st of this year, we cut the provincial tax on gasoline in Manitoba to zero. And it continues to be at zero right now. And as a result, Manitoba has the lowest inflation rate in the country. And even in spite of the fact that we're dealing with the pipeline issues related to Imperial, we have the lowest gasoline price in all of Canada in Manitoba. Again, a provincial government can't do everything, but we've shown through the steps that we've taken that a government can do some things to help you and to help your family. And so making sure the gasoline is a little bit cheaper is one step that we've taken. And we're probably going to have further news to share when it comes to other affordability measures that we can make, including affordability measures related to the topic at hand, when we bring the budget forward next week. And we know that the cost of groceries has been a major issue. We've been working with the federal agriculture department to look at options on the table. And what I would say is that our work in this space is not finished yet, but having the lowest inflation rate in the country for January and the lowest inflation rate in the country for February is a decent start. But we know that there's still a lot more work to do to help you and your family get by during this rising cost of living period that we're all living in.
Wow. Now see, that is something. They cut the provincial tax on fuel to zero. That really helps lower the price at the pump. The federal taxes still, of course, remain in place, but look at what happened right there. Their inflation rate, the lowest in the country. Now, he's a New Democrat. That's an NDP government out there, I believe, and they tend to be pretty left-wing, socialistic, but traditionally they've been, in Canada, pro-worker, pro-blue collar, the party of the people, really, the working class. Not so at the federal level, but wow, that's pretty impressive. Now, people aren't going to be too happy with that digital ID. I know that. A lot of people are going to be pretty concerned about that. But hey, zero provincial tax on fuel. I'm very much in favor of that, just looking at it from an economic perspective. That makes a lot of sense. I've always advocated for low energy costs. If you want a healthy economy, a healthy country, a healthy community, lower the price of energy. It's a primary input into any kind of production or even most services delivered to people. You must have energy. Cheap, clean, the cleanest possible energy. Make it affordable, and you'll see the economy take off because people will be able to travel. It'll stimulate tourism. It stimulates production. It makes production at every level competitive globally. And we have abundant energy in the country. You make energy cheap, and it stimulates the economy. And as a result, you'll probably end up collecting more in tax revenue on the other side because there will be more affluence. Higher wages, more jobs, more productivity, more consumption, obviously, a higher standard of living. And because you have growth, you'll collect what you lose by your percentage of taxation on the input side. You're going to pick it up on the consumption side, on the other side, in volume. And there have been many studies to show that that is often the case. It's about striking that just the right balance. Taxation levels versus, consumption, production. You get the right balance, and you're going to hit the sweet spot. Now, speaking of striking the right balance, the Trudeau government is determined to go ahead with this carbon tax on Monday. There's a parliamentary committee that has been hearing from premiers this week. Today, Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, Canada's oil-producing province, testified in front of, over a Zoom call of sorts to the parliamentary committee. Danielle Smith saying that the carbon tax is actually inhumane. And promoting this whole axe the tax thing. Now, hang on a second here. Let me see. Where did we go with Danielle Smith? Here we are right here. Okay, let's bring Danielle Smith up. Testifying today before that parliamentary committee in Ottawa. And here we are.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak to the committee, especially knowing that it's constituency week. So thank you for taking the time for that. I know how important that is to you. I'm here on behalf of Albertans and Canadians who are struggling with severe financial pressures. They're increasingly desperate because they're facing a cost of living crisis not seen in decades. Over the last 2 years, inflation and high interest rates have driven up prices on everything from food to gas to housing, things that Albertans rely on every single day. Families are being forced to make tough choices just to put food on the table. Businesses are having to make sacrifices to keep the lights on. Social services are under intense strain as more and more people reach out for help, many for the first time in their lives. Albertans and all Canadians need common sense, compassion, and responsible government to prevail. So I'm urging you today to heed the calls of Canadians across the country and suspend the increase in the carbon tax on April 1st. The carbon tax has contributed to and worsened Canadian stress and financial pain. Despite the federal government's claims that Canadians benefit from rebates, the carbon tax on a net basis will cost Albertans more than $900 this year if the tax is implemented. The federal government's own parliamentary budget officer has also said that the cost to each Albertan will more than triple in the next 6 years to a staggering expense of $2,700 net by 2030-2031. This isn't just reckless, it's immoral, and it's inhumane. And the added pressure will ruin countless lives, futures, and dreams. It's a weight that Canadians can't bear. And that's why Alberta has been calling on the federal government to eliminate the carbon tax since 2019. Let me repeat what I've said many times before. We understand the importance of achieving carbon neutrality, and we can manage it together as a nation without punishing everyday Albertans. We've demonstrated as much in Alberta, where we are making significant strides towards reducing emissions. And we're doing it without compromising jobs and hurting the industries that have created so much wealth and prosperity for our country, and which will continue to do so if the federal government would just let them. Our province has a long history of climate action, with more than 2 decades of programs and policies that have led emissions reductions and inspired other jurisdictions to follow our lead. Provinces and territories must be able to create emissions reduction plans that reflect their distinct needs and priorities. Alberta's industries are steadily lowering emissions with new technology and investment, even as they compete with foreign suppliers who ignore the need to improve their own performance. And things don't have to be this way. We can effectively reduce emissions without punishing Canadians for trying to stay warm or drive to work or school or a medical appointment. Alberta's already doing it through our carbon trading market. It's the technology innovation and emissions reduction regulation, just launched actually on NGX this month, and through our emissions reduction and energy development plan, which I released last April. The only thing the federal carbon tax is achieving is higher costs. And in fact, Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault did say it would take until 2060 for it to have an impact. As of April 1st, Albertans will pay around 35 cents in federal taxes for every liter of fuel, along with the carbon tax that also includes the federal excise tax and the GST, which is a tax on tax. The price of natural gas, which Albertans rely on, will also be affected by the carbon tax increase. The carbon tax increase on natural gas is going up to $4.09 a gigajoule, which is more than double the base price of natural gas, which today stands at about $1.72 a gigajoule. The so-called solutions the federal government is to increase the carbon tax on something that is life or death for Albertans in the extreme cold of winter. And I will say that is, again, inhumane. It begs the question, how far will the federal government go to make life even more difficult and expensive when so many Canadians are already struggling? Alberta municipalities, schools, and healthcare providers are telling us that they need to make cuts and borrow from elsewhere in their budgets just to accommodate the upcoming carbon tax increase. And yet we hear repeatedly that affordability remains a top federal priority. So I'm calling on the federal government to match words with actions. This means working with the provinces to ease.
Oh, we lost a feed. Hang on. It'll come back. Let me just pull that down for a moment. Something went wrong there. Come on, Internet. What is going on? Here we go.
Economy. Serious challenges like affordability
We're
and
back.
emissions demand serious responses, and an increased federal carbon tax is nothing of the sort, and Canadians don't want it. You only need to look across the country to see premiers across party lines, 7 of us, and the people they represent stand up against it. If the federal government wants to protect Canadians' quality of life, it should step up and cancel the carbon tax increase immediately. At the very least, the federal government should apply policy equally across the country. We've heard the Quebec representative say several times that Quebec does not pay the fuel tax. And we also would like to see an exemption on all forms of home heating, not just ones that are centered in Atlantic Canada and on a particular type of fuel. It must do this for the sake of fairness for all Canadians. The people of this country deserve nothing less. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, so we can end that one there. And as I say, protests are being planned in many, many places across the country for Monday. What those will look like, I'm not exactly sure, but I was at the supermarket today. I should have taken a picture of it, but there was, the bulletin boards that they put up at supermarkets where people put up posters and things of that nature. Well, there were two little flyers up for an Axe the Tax protest right here out on the highway. So there will be a flag wag going on out there on the overpass with Canadian flags. And I expect probably a few F. Trudeau flags will be there as well. I think there'll be a lot of those out on Monday. Some people, pretty upset Not sure how far that protest is going to go. Some people vowing to stay there for quite a long time. Hearing a lot of different things. We'll see what actually happens. I don't know if I'm going to look in the chat here. Well, hello there, Joe. No any digital in Alberta, Canada ever, he says. Anybody hearing anything about these protests on Monday? If so, just type something out there in the chat. And there's Joe saying, go Danielle Smith, the Premier. Yeah, those are strong words to say that the carbon tax is inhumane. Very strong words, and yet probably very true. I think that is actually very true. Right now, I know a lot of people who barely have enough, to get by from month to month. And you add even $10 or $20 or $30, you add anything to their monthly bill, and they come up short. A lot of people already don't have enough to get by, and we're seeing record numbers of people relying on food banks. People Unite says the carbon tax is a piece of you-know-what. And Gina says in the name of Jesus, protect this woman. Yeah. And hello, Gina. And DN Complies says JT thinks it is ask the tax, not axe the tax. And Sandy says of Danielle Smith, she's a very intelligent lady. Yeah, I'm going to go over here and just I'm going to check in the Rumble chat. I don't really know many people that have said they're actually going out to any of these protests on Monday. I'm seeing some talk of it online. As I say, I saw the flyer at the supermarket today for my community here. But I've asked you guys a few times over the last few nights if anyone is going out. I haven't really seen any indication from anyone that anyone is going to any of these. But I'm sure that there will be people. Online I'm seeing a fair bit of activity and organization. Rosemary Mack says, lovely, not in BC, they're terrible. Oh, and Johnny. Hey, John. He says, be prepared to stay a few days, I'm hearing. Yeah, I'm hearing that too. And Raising Wolves says it's going to be huge. I don't know. I don't know how many people will show up for these protests. Well, they'll get some for sure. I know that there has been a fair amount of organization that has gone into it, so we'll see on Monday. We'll keep tabs on it. Could maybe go down and check that out on Monday when the people are out there wagging their flags out on the overpasses. Oh, DN Comply says CSIS and RCMP are going. Of that, I have no doubt. Keeping tabs on the protests. And Peter Grayson says, you don't tell the enemy your plans, Rick. You know that. Well, yeah, I'm just sharing what I know publicly. And maybe the fact that people are not saying very much in the chat about this, maybe that's an indication of a large turnout. I don't know. I don't know. I'll tell you what I do know. The tax is not popular. Justin Trudeau losing popularity daily, and it all is because of the rising cost of living, and that all comes right back to that carbon tax. And we'll come back right after this.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
So yeah, there you have. It's been an interesting journey to this point because you're now seeing Pierre Poilievre at a rally. Was it about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago? He called for protests. He actually called on people to get out there and protest the axe the tax thing. And Danielle Smith also, getting behind this axe the tax idea. And I would say all the way along with all these protests, as much as they were supposed to be benefiting, I think mostly the People's Party of Canada or some other alternative political solutions that some people have been trying to present, it has all the way along been of most benefit to the Conservatives, I think. Because it has resulted in more and more dissatisfaction with Trudeau. And then the loss of support on the Trudeau side has been bleeding off and seeping into the Conservative Party. And that's why you're seeing Poilievre rise so dramatically in the polls. What will happen after this week? Well, I don't know, but it's going to be very interesting. We'll have to see how people are affected by this initial increase in the carbon tax on Monday, keeping in mind that this is just part of an incremental thing that is going to continue over the next 5 to 6 years, or really 6 years heading into 2030, if the Liberals remain in power. If you get them out of there, then this whole carbon tax thing can go away. If whoever replaces Trudeau, if it is Poilievre, if he's true to his word, it will be gone. Will they replace it with something else? That's often the bait and switch that a politician will execute once elected, right? But I'll tell you, if he does something like that, he will be the most unpopular person in the country instantly, I predict. Let's move on to other news tonight. Vladimir Putin. He is saying that any F-16s provided to Ukraine will not change the situation on the battlefield. So Putin is saying as well that if NATO provides these jets, they will be destroyed. He was speaking to Russian Air Force pilots, and he said he has no plans to attack any NATO countries, but says if the West supplies Ukraine with F-16s, Russia will just shoot them down. And it won't change anything. He says they'll destroy the aircraft, just like they're destroying tanks, armored vehicles, other equipment, including multiple launch rocket systems. This was provided to the public today, to media, through a transcript which was released by the Kremlin. No audio of it, as far as I know. But he says, quote, "Of course we would see them as legitimate targets if they operate from airfields of third countries, no matter where they are located. F-16 aircraft can also carry nuclear weapons, and we will also have to heed this while organizing our combat operations." So the United States and other NATO allies have approved sending F-16s to Ukraine. That happening last year, and Ukrainian pilots have been training out of the country to learn how to fly those jets. And those F-16s are supposed to be delivered in the coming months. So, accompanying all of that, many claims from NATO saying that Russia is looking to attack NATO countries, including Poland. But Putin has consistently denied any plans of that nature. And so far, I have to say, I haven't really seen any indication, any proof of that kind of intent at all from Putin. So he went on in this statement to say that quote, it is therefore complete nonsense when they claim that we can attack some other countries, including Poland, the Baltics, and they are scaring the Czech Republic too. This amounts to ravings, and this is another way of deceiving their own population, forcing the people to spend more money and to shoulder this burden. This is it, Putin said. So that's what's going on over there on the war front in Ukraine. And then pivoting back now to Canada, briefly. Poilievre, again, talking about the carbon tax, but he's getting some heat because of the whole situation in Gaza. There's a story, and this is highly, I wouldn't take this entirely at face value. There is politics being played here. And here I'll show you the Canadian press version of the story. It says, the headline, quote, "We won't forget how some Muslims view Poilievre's stance on the Israel-Hamas war." So a spokesman for a regional Muslim advocacy group says conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's stance on the Israel-Hamas war could complicate his party's relationship with Muslim Canadians. Nawaz Tahir of the Haikma Public Affairs Council in London, Ontario, met Poilievre during the leader's outreach efforts in southwestern Ontario last summer, it says, and Tahir said he believes Poilievre has missed chances to show compassion for Muslims and that building ties could be much more difficult now. So Poilievre's reluctance to call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza came up in January when Conservative MP Garnet Genius met members of Mississauga's Pakistani and Muslim communities. The man asked why Poilievre had not called for a ceasefire, saying it was, quote, "just a question from my heart to you," as the discussion talked about better protecting children. In any event, you're getting the idea here. Canada has a growing Muslim population. They do represent a very substantial voting bloc in the country now. And there is some speculation that maybe this whole thing, this news story, focusing on this issue and centering it around Poilievre, might be part of a liberal strategy to pull Poilievre into a difficult, damaging political situation, debate. Drag him out into no man's land on an issue that really leaves any politician, I think, in a place there where they simply cannot win. Trudeau's already there. You're seeing the protests outside every venue he attends, which would be happening anyway because people are so upset with him. But specifically on that issue, you're seeing extreme emotions on both sides. So too does that happen on the U.S. side with politicians down there, including Biden. And I don't know, Trump doesn't seem to be taking too much flack over it. RFK Jr. taking a lot of heat on that issue. Almost, I would say it almost smacks of internal sabotage, where people within his own group of supporters seem to want to hold his feet right in the fire on that issue, when every other contender for the White House is basically of the same position. They're pro-Israel, ultimately. Although we're seeing some drift on that, including from Biden, where, building that port over in Gaza, it seems to me like that's more window dressing than anything else because it's going to take so long to build it, and then it's still going to be administered by Israel. I'm not sure that would actually result in any more aid being transported into Gaza. You already have all these trucks lined up, essentially being delayed, prevented from getting in there in an efficient manner. I mean, if you wanted to get the aid in, it seems to me you could just swing the gate open and let the trucks drive in. Why do you need to build a port? But I guess it makes it look like they're doing something. And then you have this ceasefire resolution. Has it worked yet? I don't think so. I told you, it's not likely to work. We'll see where that goes, too, in the days ahead. And we'll see how this all plays out, too. That whole issue in Gaza, that could have a major impact on what happens in the next federal election in Canada, and it's going to have an impact on that presidential race as well. I'm pretty sure of it, because this thing is, it ain't going to be over. Heck, it's been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? This conflict, dispute, and it's heated. Sam Bankman-Fried sentenced to 25 years in prison for orchestrating the FTX fraud. In a federal courtroom in Lower Manhattan, U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan called the defense argument misleading, logically flawed, and speculative. He says that Bankman-Fried obstructed justice. He says that Bankman-Fried tampered with witnesses in mounting his defense, and Kaplan said he weighed all of that while making his decision on sentencing. So Bankman-Fried in court today, he was wearing a beige jailhouse jumpsuit. He said that he made a series of selfish decisions when he was leading the FTX cryptocurrency company, and he threw it all away. He said, quote, "It haunts me every day." Now, the prosecutors were looking for a sentence as severe as 50 years. Well, Bankman-Fried's lawyers said that he should only get maybe 6.5. He was convicted on 7 criminal counts back in November. And now he's going to go to jail for 25 years. He plans to appeal both the convictions and the sentence. And it did hurt a lot of people. So, Bankman-Fried said, as I said, that he, this said it haunts him. But of course, the victims, people who lost so much, also were allowed to provide victim impact statements. And, you're hearing things from people saying that their whole life has been destroyed in this whole fraudulent crypto thing. Another high-profile case. Artificial intelligence. The White House addressing that. Kamala Harris, the vice president, has announced new oversight for government use of artificial intelligence. So she has 3 new federal rules encouraging safety and transparency. The rules have been introduced through the White House Office of Management and Budget. And what they are hoping to do is raise the standards set to protect rights and public safety, in addition to improving transparency and internal oversight. So there was a safety summit recently on AI. This announcement now coming today, and they are going to be appointing officials to oversee new departments as part of a plan to sort of accelerate the government's ability to regulate, oversee the, I guess, the evolution and rollout of artificial intelligence. I'm hearing a lot of different assessments on this. Some people worried that government is actually overseeing the technology and the way that it will be used in society. Some people saying that they want to not regulate it because they're worried about public safety, or because they want to make sure that, but more that they want to regulate it because they're afraid it's going to tell people the truth about the government. You never know. That might actually be the truth. That might be what happens. Maybe AI won't kill us all. Maybe it will lead us all to truth. Very hard to say where all this is going to go. As long as it doesn't go full Terminator and annihilate the human race in a mass digital genocide, I guess I'll have to just be happy with that. Here are some comments at the White House. We'll just pick up some of this briefly as they address this issue. And this is probably, I think, well, if it's not the most important issue of our time, it has to be one of the top 5 for sure. This is going to transform society in ways that I don't think anybody can fully predict at this point.
Thank you, Ben. I'm Ami Fields-Meyer, Senior Policy Advisor to the Vice President. Let me just begin on behalf of Vice President Harris with a note of gratitude as well to the Office of Management and Budget for its extraordinary leadership, Office of Science and Technology Policy for your vision and initiative since the start of this administration, and to our colleagues from across the administration and civil society for playing a critical role in every stage of developing and we hope every stage of implementing this policy. When Vice President Harris speaks about artificial intelligence and emerging technology writ large, she begins, as the President does, with people and with communities. Older Americans seeking access to health care, workers trying to earn a fair wage, communities across our democracy who rely on critical sources of information, and all people, frankly, who can benefit from the fruits of innovation. And so along with President Biden, the Vice President has been very, very clear throughout the administration and throughout her career that all leaders from government, from civil society, and the private sector have a moral and ethical and societal duty to make sure that AI is adopted and advanced in a way, and that all technology is adopted and advanced in a way that protects people from potential harm and ensures that everyone is able to enjoy its benefits. That work, that mission, means leading by example. It begins with us here in this room and in the US government. So that's why last year in London, on the global stage, the Vice President announced a series of bold initiatives to advance the safe and responsible use of AI. I won't name all the initiatives, but just 3 as sort of illustrative examples. The US AI Safety Institute, which will create rigorous standards to test the safety of AI models for public use. 2, a groundbreaking philanthropic initiative with $200 million in foundation commitments to advance AI in the public interest, because we cannot do this work alone. And 3rd, and as a sort of anchor, a draft of this policy, the M memo, with its binding requirements to promote the safe and secure and responsible use of AI by the federal government. Today's policy is a critical step toward a future where all of our most vulnerable people, all of our communities are protected from the risks and the threats of AI, but also where people across the United States and across the world have access to the benefits of innovation. So as the Vice President has said, this should serve as a model for global action because AI developed in one nation can impact the lives and livelihoods of people across the globe. So the Office of the Vice President stands ready to work with all of you, looks forward to continuing this work with all of you, and we have immense gratitude for all the work that's gone into this policy. With that, I will hand things over to OMB Deputy Director Nani Coloretti.
Okay, we're just going to pull out of that because what I want to do now is I want to go to a clip of the Terminator, Arnold. Arnold. You know why we need to be afraid? Because this guy, the Terminator, remember when he what he said during the lockdowns and the pandemic? That Arnold's attitude on full display here, talking about his health.
You should know there is a virus here. It kills people, and the only way we prevent it is to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom, because with freedom comes obligations and responsibilities. We cannot just say, I have the right to do X, Y, and Z. When you affect other people, that is when it gets serious. It's like no different than a traffic light. We put a traffic light at an intersection so someone doesn't kill someone else. You should know.
That, when he said that, that drove me crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, it says there that he had a pacemaker fitted. Is that true? Did Arnold get a pacemaker? I'm going to check that out. Arnold Schwarzenegger. So is he actually, does he have a cybernetic heart now? Yeah, he has his pacemaker. And this is a breaking news story. So what can we tell you? He says, well, I think we've got a clip of him here. Here we go. Okay. He opens up about his pacemaker surgery. Right here. Let's get the clip from the Terminator himself. Arnold. We'll go over here and pick it up. I want to know, Arnold, about your pacemaker. Okay, here we go. Okay, Arnold, tell us, man, about your pacemaker.
Remember when I had my open heart surgery, the third one, which was just a few years ago, just before we started Terminator 6. And I was like really freaking out. I mean, I woke up all of a sudden and the doctors were sitting in front of me and saying, I'm so sorry, but unlike what we planned, which was non-invasive surgery, to just go through the growings up to the heart and replace the valve, we made a mistake and poked through the heart wall, and therefore we had to kind of get internal bleeding and we had to open me up very quickly and to save your life. As I said, well, great, this is really great news. I mean, Jesus. So anyway, the bottom line is, you know, that you cannot roll the clock back. It's a disaster. I was in the middle of a disaster. So now it's how do I get out of it? So you have to shift gears. You collect yourself, shift gears and say, okay, what I need to do now is I got to get out of this hospital, number one. How do I get out of the hospital is, okay, by getting out of bed and start walking. Start walking. First 10 steps, then over sit down around the nurse's station, and then long and long. And then I called my buddies in, and I said, you guys have to fire me up. You have to count the amount of steps that I'm doing. And so this is what we did every day. Everyone came in there to the hospital, and they said, okay, Arnold, get up now. Let's go and walk the hallway. So walking down the hallway, oh, you're doing really well. You're doing well. I knew I was not doing well. I looked like an idiot, wobbling around to the hallway. But I mean, the bottom line was I was getting going, and because the doctor said, you have to exercise your lungs, because if you get pneumonia, you can die. So I wanted to get really going with the exercise, get out of the hospital as quickly as possible, and then get going with the training again. Because I had, in 3 months later, I started with Terminator 6. So I had to be in shape. I had to be able to move around and run around, lift things up, do the fight scenes, and all of this kind of thing. So we did it because I had a positive attitude. I knew exactly how I'm going to get there. I had the support system, because none of this we can do by ourselves. I had a whole support system, and it was fantastic. The way all the guys pumped me up and got me going. And when I started shooting Terminator 6, I was all back together again.
Well, I'm glad that he's back together again. Still not happy with what he said during the pandemic. Screw your freedom. I'll never forget him saying it, and I'll never forgive him for it. A lot of people, well, maybe I'll forgive him. Maybe I'll forgive him. Maybe. I don't know. It's so hard, isn't it? That's the thing. It's, for me, this is me personally, there are businesses I will not frequent. A lot of places I simply will not patronize again. They won't get another dime from me. Screw your freedom. That was the attitude back then, right? Boy, were we put to the test back then as a society, and so many people failed. And on so many levels right now, we're still being tested daily. These wars, politics, the economy, so much tearing us apart, dividing us. And yep, I'm telling you, as I sit here, I think a lot of us are still failing the test. So, I guess that meeting too from the delegation from the Netanyahu government that was supposed to go to Washington. They said they're not going to go. They've shifted a little bit. I guess they're going to reschedule that. So we'll keep on watching that as well. That meeting was called off, I guess, because the United States abstained from that ceasefire vote at the United Nations. Also today, I don't have the audio queued up here, don't really necessarily need it, but just another thing to take note of. John Kirby, Admiral Kirby, made a statement to reporters in a recorded audio news conference saying that the United States did, in fact, warn Russia about that terrorist attack in Moscow. He claims, the U.S. administration claims, that they did provide a warning in writing. And Kirby today says Putin and Russia are simply, what were his words? I don't have any notes in front of me, so this is off the top of my head from memory from earlier today. Basically, he's saying that the Russian government is spinning up its own narrative on it and blaming other countries in ways that just suit their narrative. So that's the U.S. position on it. They're saying that it wasn't just a public warning that was issued on the 7th. They say that they actually did send a warning to the Kremlin in writing. So there's some dispute over that. And I'm seeing a lot of conflicting stuff coming from both sides. What the truth is, once again, two different stories. Who the heck really knows? I have my own views on it. I'm sure you do as well. All we can do is sit back and make sure that there's butter on the popcorn. That Baltimore bridge crash, now seeing that there are reports coming out saying that there is no evidence that a cyber attack was involved. Here, I'll show you the headline. This is the headline from USA Today. This making the rounds on media. No evidence of cyber attack in Baltimore ship collision, officials say. Cyber attack, the claim, and we have heard this, and I did talk about this. I didn't say here that it was a cyber attack. I said that the shipping industry has been aware of the threat of cyber attacks, and it's a very real threat, with many in the industry leaders in recent surveys saying that they expected about 60% of people involved in the shipping industry expect that we will be seeing in the next few years ship collisions and even groundings because of cyber attacks. However, it says here that some people online, and I have seen this, some people are saying that it was a cyber attack, making that claim. But the Secretary of Homeland Security said that there is no indications that this was an intentional act of any kind. And there's no specific and credible information to suggest any ties to terrorism. But the investigation continues. And I'm seeing all kinds of claims and stories out there. And then, even though we're getting that information from the mainstream media, also getting this on Fox News today, this brief clip, which almost seems to run in contradiction to what I just told you.
At 01:24 and 59 seconds, numerous audible alarms were recorded on the ship's bridge audio. About the same time, VDR sensor data ceased recording. However, the VDR audio continued to record using the redundant power source. At around 01:26 and 2 seconds, the VDR resumed recording sensor data, and during this time there were steering commands and rudder orders recorded on the audio. At around 01:26 and 39 seconds.
So, what you're basically hearing there is that the recording device is there, basically the equivalent of a black box on an airplane. This is, the recording data on the ship, and for a brief period of time, it stopped recording. Of course, you have a massive power failure, the engine shut down. Then he makes reference to the redundant electrical systems, that's battery backup, which would be used to power the computer systems and the servos and other systems to, I guess, help with the, position the rudders and so on. But of course, with the engines not running, you don't have full maneuverability of the ship. You don't have power available. And some people have said, I noticed yesterday people saying, why didn't they just drop the anchor? And that is something that they can do. But even then, it takes time for that anchor to get to the bottom, and then for the anchor to find a place to grab a hold and bring the ship to a halt. You need distance to arrest that inertia. Is a cyber attack, when I say cyber attack, that could come in many forms. It could just be malicious malware that just happened to kick in at any given time. I don't know. But the thing is, and I was listening to Dan Bongino earlier today, and, I'm kind of on the same page as him, where he's getting tired of people just instantly starting, coming forward and spewing all kinds of claims, making all kinds of assertions that are just honestly clickbait, designed to get people all jacked up. And he says, why can't people just wait for a day or two and wait for the facts to come out, wait for more information? That's where I'm at as well. I want facts. And once we get more information, we'll be able to make a better determination on what may have happened to lead to this disaster. And tonight we're seeing that as a result of that, even if it wasn't a terrorist attack or something, done intentionally, the impact is still very much the same as it would be if it had been an intentional act. That port is non-functional now. You have ships stranded in there. I'm seeing reports here tonight of ships that would normally be used to support military operations by transporting supplies and spare parts for jets and other military equipment blocked in the port. There are 4 cargo ships there that are usually they sit there on call to support U.S. military operations. So you have 4 ships that are just sitting there, and they can't move. They can't get out of there. So it is throwing a monkey wrench into things for sure. And the full impact, I think, is still yet to be realized. But people are, resourceful. There will be a workaround developed. As I said, in many places, barges are used to transport trucks and even hazardous chemicals. That bridge was used to transport hazardous chemicals. They can't bring it through the tunnel there. So, car traffic, I guess, can still flow through that tunnel. They have a tunnel. And I'm not sure exactly how everything is set up at Baltimore, as I've not actually visited that particular city. But I would think that they'll move barges or something in there to start moving things again at some point. And once they get the debris cleared, which will take some time, the ships will be able to at least move in and out of the port again while they start to work on a plan to rebuild or build a brand new bridge to replace that structure. Stay with me. I'll be back on the other side of this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
You know, it's so hard to make sense of this world. On the one hand, we sit here and we talk about rising fuel prices, a carbon tax, which the government is trying to implement because they see that as one of the things that could lead to solutions for, the climate change crisis that the government sees out there. Other people don't see it that way. Well, all this is going on, and you have now these big carbon tax protests, or could be big, or I don't know, on Monday, whatever, next week, over the weekend. Well, while that's going on, you also see on the other side the people who are embracing the climate change, the war on climate change, I guess, or however you want to, I don't know what you want to call it, but I'm just pointing this out. There's a big concert coming up. Green Day will headline the United Nations-backed Global Climate Concert in San Francisco. So that'll be a big money concert. And what are they going to do with all the cash? It says Green Day will headline a United Nations human rights-backed global climate concert Tuesday at the famed Fillmore in San Francisco. The intimate event, which is co-hosted by the Recording Academy, aims to bring attention to the inequalities exacerbated by climate change. Ultra Q, an alternative rock band fronted by Green Day singer Billy Joe Armstrong's son Jacob Danger, will open. Well, let's keep it all in the family, shall we? Proceeds from the concert will go to United Nations Human Rights Climate Justice Initiatives and a Music Cares Climate Fund to benefit musicians affected by climate change. The Right Here, Right Now Global Climate Alliance will honor Green Day for their commitment to social justice and environmental causes. All that coming out in a news release. As world-renowned artists and activists, it says Green Day continues to leverage its major influence and platform to bring awareness to the impact of climate change on the people and the environment. Volker Turk, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, said in that statement. The United Nations was founded in San Francisco almost 80 years ago to safeguard human rights and dignity from crisis and tragedy. It is only fitting that we are back in San Francisco, he said. Music is one of humanity's greatest resources. It moves the world, Harvey Mason Jr., CEO of the Recording Academy, added, going on to say, and we are grateful for Green Day's longstanding dedication to promoting social justice. Interesting. I've always found it interesting how people on that side of the political spectrum always connect things together like that. It's climate change and social justice. It's how they view the world. It's what lens are you looking through to analyze things. Everything analyzed from a very particular perspective. When I was in English class in high school, English lit, you learn about those approaches to things. When I was in college, I had two English professors who, I had two in the teaching the class. And they wanted everything analyzed, every single piece of literature that we read. We had to analyze it from a Christian existential perspective. Everything. it was an eye opener, that class. Talk about woke. Both of those professors very woke. As a youngster, I struggled in that class. I mean, I passed okay, but I just struggled with the conversations because political correctness, identity politics, the whole, I would say, extreme left woke culture was just beginning to really emerge and take hold at that time. And I really didn't understand what the heck was going on in that class, but there was right in front of me the future of the political landscape. And it was those two right there. They really didn't know what to do with me when I would raise my hand and speak. I mean, I'm sure they kind of got where I was coming from, but they didn't. I don't think they liked me very much. I was just way too conservative, even back then. Wow. And I think back now to some of the stupid things I said when I was a student in that class, because I mean, the politics back then was just entirely different. But those two professors, they were a prelude to the woke culture that we find ourselves in here today. The left wing identity politics, that was the one of the key moments in history where you could see the capture of the institution taking place in real time right before you and not even realize that it was happening. I just thought they were nuts. I was like, what are they talking about? I don't get it. Over time, you begin to figure it out, but not until, I'd already graduated and moved on. And then I'm thinking back, oh, that's what it was all about. It was about wokeism. Oh, the one that was a man and a woman. The one prof was a self-described male feminist at the time. Very nice guy, and I was like, male feminist? What the hell is that? Never heard of it before. But there he was. I guess he maybe was the inspiration for Justin Trudeau. Anyway, it was different times, man. It was the 80s. And it was like, okay, whatever. Do your own thing. But no, it was more than doing your own thing, man. They were transforming the post-secondary educational institution in which I was enrolled. And I had no idea what the heck was going on. I did pass. I didn't do super well. I mean, my marks were okay, but I think honestly they probably should have been higher. It's just that I was in direct opposition to their perspective on the world and on politics. Oh my, I've learned so much since then. In my late teens and my 20s, you think you know things, but you're really so naive. I also came into all of that, like I think so many other people as well. Nobody paved the way for me or, most of the people that I went to school with there, because I was the first to sort of go down the path that I went. It's not like I had a parent or a grandparent or an uncle or something who was already in the media business and would say, no, you got to do this, you got to do that. You have to figure it all out on your own. I think anybody that, makes those first forays into any new industry or, a new sector, you can sort of pave the way for your family if your kids or younger relatives choose to follow you. You can kind of help them out. I did see a few people like that who had their careers sort of turbocharged from the beginning because they had parents in the industry who sort of like, oh, you just move over there, You get a good job. I didn't have the silver spoon in my mouth at all. And I think for the most part, 99% of us are in that boat. And that's okay, because I certainly appreciate what I was able to eke out in terms of a living. So that was a good thing. What else do we have going on here tonight? Man, we've already covered a lot of ground. Donald Trump taking some criticism. Some people upset because of his God Bless the USA Bible. This is actually, I think, a Lee Greenwood thing. They've been around for a while. It's just, I think these headlines are just an indication of the political season that we are in, which is the U.S. presidential election. Why some Christians are angry about Trump's God Bless the USA Bible. He's officially selling patriotic copies of the Christian Bible themed to Lee Greenwood's famous song, God Bless the USA. Happy Holy Week, Trump announced on social media during the most solemn period of the Christian calendar, it says. The last week of the Lenten season, marking the suffering and death of Jesus. Quote, as we lead into Good Friday and Easter, I encourage you to get a copy of the God Bless the USA Bible. It's also raised questions about Trump's motivations as the former president finds himself in the middle of several expensive legal battles. Sacrilege theology and the shadow of Christian nationalism. It says here, the $59.99 Bible, which was first published in 2021, features an American flag and the words God Bless the USA printed on the cover. Inside, it has the words to God Bless the USA and the text of the Declaration of Independence, the Pledge of Allegiance, and other historic American documents. Promotional material for the Bible shows the former president alongside country singer Lee Greenwood. Let's go to Truth Social and see what Trump's saying about this. It's got to be on here somewhere, right? Looks like we've got a video up, just a brand new one just posted with Trump. I don't know if it's going to play, though. Some of these videos on Truth Social don't seem to queue up and play very well. I want to see what he has to say, though, about the Bible. I don't know if this clip is going to play. I don't think so. Let's see if we can find Trump. God Bless the USA Bible. Here we go. Here we go. I've got it. Let's see what it looks like. Let's go to Trump talking about the Bible. Remember the video of him standing in front of the church after they tried to set that church on fire, and he went out there and held the Bible up, and then of course his opponents grabbed a hold of that and then made the video of him holding up the Bible, and they made it look like he got struck by lightning. I thought, oh, that's terrible. But that's politics, man. Okay, here he is. Let's listen to his pitch.
Part of this God Bless the USA Bible, and it's just very important to me. I want to have a lot of people have it. You have to have it for your heart.
Enjoy steaks of this quality in one of my resort restaurants or America's finest steakhouses, but now that's changed. Today, through the Sharper Image, you can enjoy the world's greatest steaks in your own home with family, friends, any. So what do you think of my Trump Home mattress collection by Serta? Finally, the same luxury and comfort I demand in my hotels.
Oh, they'll never count sheep again.
Listen.
Mr. Trump, please.
My new game is Trump, the game. Trump.
the game where you deal for everything you've ever wanted to own. Because it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether you win.
Yes!
Play Trump, the game from Milton Bradley.
I think you'll like it.
Vodka, and I'm very proud of the fact, actually, that I don't drink, but it's a vodka that people really like, and as you know, it's taken off like crazy.
We're going to have professors and adjunct professors that are absolutely terrific, terrific people, terrific brains, successful. We are going to have the best of the best. And honestly, if you don't learn from them, if you don't learn from me, if you don't learn from the people that we're going to be putting forward, and these are all people that are hand-picked by me, then you're just not going to make it in terms of the world.
Will be the Trump shuttle that services air commuters between Boston, New York, and Washington.
You had other people wanting this very much, as we all know, and it was just really a nice victory. It was a very sweet victory.
The shuttle service went up in typical Trump style.
We were the first plane out this morning. We were the most successful flight this morning. We had more people than anybody else, and I think we had better service than anybody else. My suits will guarantee you're always boardroom ready. But every great suit needs a great shirt and tie. My dress shirts are 100% cotton, ensuring you look sharp all day long. Add a bold satin tie with the double Windsor knot, and that's a power statement. And one last tip. Top it off with a pair of elegant cufflinks, and you're ready for business. The Donald J. Trump Signature Collection, only at Macy's. The Trump Network wants to give millions of people renewed hope, and with an exciting plan to opt out of the recession. Let's get out of this recession right now. With cutting-edge health and wellness formulas and a system where you can develop your own financial independence, the Trump Network offers people the opportunity to achieve their American dream. I'm still looking at a bottle of water, Trump water, actually, most of it. Some of it we had to go to a much lesser quality water. You want to get those Trump bottles, I think, more than anybody else. But we're bringing a beautiful coffee table book put out by Winning Team Publishing. Every photo in it, and there are many, has been picked by me, and every caption is my own. Trading cards are back.
There they are.
Series 2, the new collection, features incredible artwork of me as a rock star and also as a monster trucker. People love to collect baseball cards, but why settle for that when you can collect the greatest trading card in history, like Trump digital trading cards? And they love what we've done. That's the real deal. That's the real deal. It is an authentic piece of the suit I wore when I took that now famous mugshot, and it was a great suit, believe me, a really good suit. It's all cut up, and you're going to get a piece of it. I'll be autographing some of them. A true collector's item. This is something to give to your family, to your kids and your grandchildren, with the purchase of 47.
So he cut up his suit and sold off pieces of, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. And the digital trading cards, no, I didn't buy any of those. Oh man, it is so American, isn't it? That whole, it's just so American. That's funny. Oh man, that is hilarious. All right, let me take another quick break here. I'll cue some other stuff up, and we'll continue on the other side of this.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Okay, so I'm back, and just wanted to mention that the search efforts, I guess, in Baltimore have been paused. We know that they did recover two of the bodies, two construction workers. I guess, you know, the workers were on the bridge, some of these people in their cars having a break. That's where some of the cars that went into the water came from. It was the construction workers. And, you know, it is a dangerous job, period, being a construction worker. They have one of the highest casualty rates, industrial accidents, construction. And boy, you know, you got to take a moment to say thank you to people who put it on the line. I look at people who work on the roads, construction. These guys are filling in potholes on the bridge. When I'm on the highway and I see road crews working and the cars flying by at, you know, 55, 65, 70, 80 miles an hour, sometimes failing to slow down. It's very scary work. And this was obviously a real tragedy. 4 people still missing and presumed dead in Baltimore. The investigation continuing. I think we just hold back, give it another day or two, and I bet you we have considerably more information. Now this is a strange story that I'm going to share with you now. I'm not sure what the heck to make of this, but here's NBC, mainstream media, so put as much stock in it as you want. Shadowy Russian actors spread Princess Kate conspiracy, analysis finds. It's about destabilization. It's about undermining trust in institutions, government, monarchy, media, everything, one security expert told NBC News. Social media accounts linked to a prominent Russian disinformation campaign. It says here, we're all too happy to capitalize on conspiracy theories about the whereabouts of Kate, Princess of Wales, according to an analysis by British security experts. The role played by these shadowy Russian actors may serve as an alarming test case, experts said, in a year when elections in Washington and Europe will be buffeted by the long-standing fake news threat, which is now being supercharged by artificial intelligence. Well, this is in line, honestly, with a lot of what I've been telling people for many months now, that every country, in one way or another, has teams in other countries engaging in this kind of behavior, these kinds of activities. So it says here, however clear as the malicious foreign involvement in the Kategate conspiracy was, the researchers at the Security, Crime and Intelligence Innovation Institute at Cardiff University in Wales were quick to point out that these actors were not responsible for originating rumors and conspiracy theories surrounding the princess before she revealed last week that she was being treated for cancer. Quote, it's not as though these Russia-linked accounts were driving the story, they were jumping on it, said Martin Innes, the Institute's director. He goes on and says it was already being framed in conspiracy terms, so foreign actors don't need to set that frame. That's already there to exploit. Yeah, that's the way I told you it works. Conjuring these theories was usually the work of Western influencers with high follower counts, regular social media users engaging with them. While some cracked jokes and posted memes, others took a more sinister tone as people speculated about Kate's whereabouts. Traditional media played its own role in the feedback loop by amplifying and prolonging the circus. So the story continues, and this is interesting stuff. Keeping in mind that this is not NBC making these claims. This is what are they calling it? The, over in Wales, Cardiff University, the Security, Crime and Intelligence Innovation Institute. So these guys study this stuff. So it's not so much a mainstream media thing here. These are people who spend their days going over this kind of information and these sorts of threats. But Innes and his colleagues said they identified 45 accounts posting about Kate on X that bore the hallmarks of the Russian disinformation campaign known as Doppelganger. For the researchers who have spent years analyzing this sort of traffic, telltale signs include the accounts' usernames and the fact that they had apparently been created in batches and were all using the same wording. Some were easy to mark out because they posted pro-Russia and anti-Ukraine content. The campaign's aims are twofold, Innes said. First, use the traffic spike associated with Kate to disseminate pro-Russia content, often related to its war in Ukraine. Second, sow discord. It goes on, quote, it's about destabilization, it's about undermining trust in institutions, government, monarchy, media, everything, he said. These kinds of stories are ideal vehicles by which to do that. It says here, Doppelganger was first identified in 2022 by EU Disinfo Lab, a non-profit group of experts based in Europe that investigates the spread of disinformation online. In the past, this Russia-based influence operation network has worked by cloning the websites of traditional media companies, posting fake articles and promoting them on social media. EU Disinfo Lab, it goes on here and says on its website, the technology has likely become more sophisticated since then. He says that these are not groups that are part of the state security services, as has happened with other operations. And it says rather this campaign is run by commercial firms who are getting contracts from the Kremlin. So NBC News, it says here, emailed the Kremlin and the Russian Foreign Ministry for comment. Britain's Telegraph newspaper also reported this week that Russia might not be the only country involved. Citing anonymous government sources, it reported that China and Iran were also fueling disinformation related to the princess. When it came to Russia-linked accounts, they did not come up with their own conspiracy theories in relation to Kate, but rather replied to existing posts, often but not exclusively with pro-Russia, anti-Ukraine content. The researchers focused on X because of their ability to collate and analyze its posts quickly, but that may only be the tip of the iceberg, it says. This is a pretty extensive story. For independent researchers, getting a good view into TikTok is really difficult, he said. But just to kind of give you some sense of scale, we've done a bit of research, and the Kate Gate story had 14 billion views. Holy smokes! And that's just in 1 month. 14 billion views. These were overall views, and not only those linked to Russian accounts. The already rich ecosystem of conspiracy theories, hardly dissuaded by blanket coverage in traditional media, gave them an ample canvas on which to work. It goes on and on and on. A lot of detail in here explaining how this all works. And I actually did take note of something else. And I don't know how if I can run this because I don't want a copyright strike. But Stephen Colbert had jumped on that whole thing because, of course, she was missing for, the better part of a month, right? And let me see if I can get you the clip here. So he is remorseful because he was making fun, I guess, or making jokes about Princess Kate. There it is there. Okay, I've got the link. I'll bring it up. Man, I hope I don't get hit with a copyright strike. Every time I run this stuff, though, from these guys, maybe I'll just show it to you, a little bit of it. Oh, man, I don't want to get nailed. I'll run just a little tiny bit of it.
Notice mostly what everybody's talking about. And
yeah, I'm not going to run this thing. He says that he's basically saying that, I'll tell you what he says. He says he makes a lot of jokes about things, on subjects that nightly that on things that everybody is talking about. And Princess Kate was in the news, and so they started to make jokes about it because she was missing in action. They didn't know where she was. There were all these rumors out there that they were seeing on social media, tons and tons and tons of posts. And so they picked up on it, and he picked up on it, and he was cracking jokes on the show, only to then find out later that the reason she wasn't in public view is because she's being sick. She has cancer. Still, we don't know exactly what kind of cancer, but, you know, she has come out and made that statement, and, you know, he apologized. He apologized. Good on him for doing that. He's not my favorite talk show host. I don't even like the talk shows anymore because they're so political now. I really miss the old days with Johnny Carson, where he would sort of occasionally pick on politicians on all sides, but now it seems like they've picked a side. You know, they're anti-Trump, of course, and Colbert, I think, used to be funnier. Sometimes the stuff I'm watching on late night television isn't even funny anymore, but here he is. You know, and I think that the Royals are a favorite with talk show hosts to attack. Low-hanging fruit, really. And because they do have wealth, I think they're seen, and public profile, and some degree of power, they're seen as low-hanging fruit. But, you know, I've said for a long time, man, you get rid of the monarchy, I think you're going to miss them when they're gone. It's, you get rid of our society or tear down the government the way so many people want to, and you're going to miss it when it's gone. That's why I prefer to kind of preserve what we have and improve upon it, fix the problems, rather than try to rip it all apart, burn it to the ground, and then start from scratch. But here he is, really embarrassed, because he was making fun of a woman who was ill, not really thinking things through. But how do you know, right? You don't know. And that's the place that a lot of people are in. A lot of people feeling remorseful after making a lot of real negative comments about Princess Kate, who is sick. I get it. I guess it's easy to fall into that trap. Okay, let me take another quick one, and I'll see you in just a moment.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right. I can tell you that newcomers to Canada are having a tough go of it. New study out, and I have to find the tab here with the story. We've been sitting here talking a lot about the cost of living, the state of the economy, and indeed, here we are. Newcomers to Canada say they're toning down their expectations because it is so expensive to live in this country. So a new survey from Leger says more than 80% of newcomers who have arrived in Canada in the past 10 years say it is too expensive to live here. And this coming from people who are trying to get started. Even though they get government assistance, they're saying they can't. It's just not good. Some people have even turned around and left. Nearly half of those who were interviewed, and I guess the sample size was about 2,100. It was used by Leger Marketing for this survey. They say that Canada turned out to be significantly more expensive than they expected. 35% said that it was somewhat more expensive. And 80% of those said that they felt welcome in Canada, nevertheless. But the country as a whole presents a higher degree of financial risk for people than they ever anticipated before they came here. So they surveyed on a number of economic issues. You know, what's most important to you? Jobs? Are you having trouble finding work? Things like that. And then they also looked at home ownership, which of course ties into this whole housing crisis that Canada is facing. So according to this survey, they asked newcomers how soon it was before they could buy a new home after arriving in Canada. So some, about 2%, actually purchased a home in the country before coming here. 1% were able to purchase one in less than a month. 1%, 1 to 3 months. 3 to 6 months for another 1%. 6 to 12 months and 3%. 7% of those surveyed, it took 1 to 2 years before they could get enough together to purchase a house, get a mortgage. 19% did it in just over 2 years or more than 2 years. But about half, 47% in total, have not purchased a home but hope to. 18% say it's just too expensive and they don't plan on purchasing a home in Canada after having been here for a while. And they're facing, I guess, some challenges finding meaningful or gainful employment. Although I think there are actually, a fair amount of jobs out there, it's just that a lot of them don't pay as well as most people would like or need them to. And so they also, says the government of Canada's current plan is to welcome 465,000 immigrants to Canada this year, 485,000 in 2024 and 500,000 in 2025. In 2022, Canada admitted over 437,000 immigrants. And then they asked, which of the following best reflects your opinion about immigration? It will admit too many immigrants. 42% of the newcomers said yes. 42% of newcomers coming into Canada think that Canada has immigration rules that will allow too many people to come into the country. About a third, 34%, say that they think the government will allow about the right number of immigrants. 7% feel that they won't allow enough in, and 17% didn't have an opinion on it. The land of promise. Not so promising after all because of the state of the economy. And I haven't seen economic conditions like this in Canada since the Carter era in the 1970s, and we are on a road to something I think much worse. I think we're probably, it is worse now than it was in the 70s. We just haven't hit the high interest rate result of the current economic situations. The interest rates are beginning to climb. They're going to get worse over time. Now, also, haven't really mentioned this before, but there was a homicide investigation out in Newdorf, Saskatchewan. Hadn't mentioned it prior to this, but the RCMP has now confirmed that the deaths of 4 people at a Newdorf, Saskatchewan area farm were murder-suicide. 4 bodies discovered there Sunday, all members of the same family. Police say 2 men, ages 67 and 30, a woman aged 58, were victims of a homicide. The 4th person, a 34-year-old man, died from self-inflicted injuries. Some people had made note of that. It was just a story that I just did not get to this week. This farm is located about 100 kilometers northeast of Regina. It's a home that's owned by Gary and Joanne Bender. But we do not have names from police confirmed at this point, so we don't know who the victims are. Not confirmed at this point. I think that's because not all family members have been notified. So we'll continue to monitor that. Updated if needed. Tragic story. Okay. With that, what we'll do is, what time is it? Okay. I will take a break. We'll come back and go to the phones here briefly. So, let me run the number for you to call. Here we go. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call now, 1-519-401-1373. One 519-401-1373. Exercise your right to free speech. That's 1-519-401-1373. That's 1-519-401-1373. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now, at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program. For your mind.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are ready to rock and roll. We have that new number that you can call down there. Canada-wide, won't cost you anything. So we've rectified that problem as long as you have Canada-wide calling. 519-401-1373. 519-401-1373. We have also these links where you can support the show if you're inclined to help us out here. If you like what you're watching, you can donate at maverickdonations.com. That's the Give, Send, Go account. And thank you so much to those of you who have supported the program. I also have to say that I'm trying to get caught up on messages and emails. I'm way, way, way behind. It's because I've been so swamped with messages coming in. But thank you so much to all of those, all of you who support what we do here, not just through donations, but just through kind words. I appreciate it very much. You can also support us at freedomreporters.com. And you can like, share, and subscribe, and that helps us out a lot too. If you're not a subscriber over on Rumble, it doesn't cost you anything, but that's really where we are focused and are really trying to grow the most. We're also over on X and Twitch and Odyssey and YouTube. We have our YouTube channels up and running over there tonight. So go check us out over there. I did have somebody call and say that sometimes they don't see us on YouTube, and that's because we have more than one YouTube channel, and we don't always run on the secondary channels. We are always pretty much on that main channel. But yeah, I guess he was missing us on a few nights. So make sure you subscribe on, you know, more than one of the YouTube channels. We have 3 over there that we use. And Rumble, of course. And if you do subscribe on YouTube, please hit the notification bell thingy. That'll make sure that you receive a notification every time we do post a video or go live. And they'll give you a notification in advance by email to let you know. And freedomreporters.com, that's the donation link. So you can call and join the conversation right now at 519-401-1373. The phone is ready to rock and roll, and we can take your call at any time. So now that you've got that, let me do this. I'm going to queue up another piece of information here, and we will continue right after this.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching. Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
So the New York International Auto Show is on, and as a result of that, I was just kind of refocusing a little bit on what is going on with the automotive industry globally, because we're also seeing auto shows in other countries. And, you know, there's a real dose of reality at this year's auto shows, and that is that the Chinese are making huge inroads into new markets, and they are emerging as a global leader in the automotive industry. The Chinese economy is growing by leaps and bounds in many respects, and that's why even companies like General Motors see China as the growth market for them. They don't see the United States and Canada so much as growth markets. But China, yes, so GM is focused over there. But over in China, there's a company that we really should be taking note of, and that is BYD. It's an automotive company that stands for Build Your Dreams. They started out originally as a battery manufacturing firm. Their whole focus from the very beginning has been to undercut competitors, to deliver the most affordable products possible. And because they focused so much on developing battery technology for first cell phones and then other devices, they've also become a leader in the development of battery technology for cars. Their new battery platform, I think, is based on lithium iron instead of lithium ion. But they have developed technology to get extremely high energy density into these battery systems. They've emerged as a global leader already, and in China, they have now overtaken Tesla as the leading manufacturer and seller of electric vehicles. In fact, last year, they produced over 3 million vehicles, dwarfing Tesla's 1.84 million. Here's a look at their website. Let me bring this up. And this is why our politicians and their plans to electrify the auto industry, maybe, we need to be very careful about the way we approach it, because we're dumping billions of dollars into it and then going head-to-head with companies like this, going head-to-head with the Chinese government and other governments around the world, too, in places like Vietnam, where VinFast, another automotive company, is becoming very strong, and actually they sell their vehicles into the Canadian market. Now, BYD is selling their products not just in China now, but also in Japan, in Europe, and even into Australia. They do have their sights set on the U.S. market as well. They're now one of the top 10 automotive companies in the world. And within the next 5 years, they are probably, according to analysts, they're probably going to be one of the top 5 auto manufacturers globally. Again, overtaking Tesla. I was just looking at stats on this today, and it's a very, very aggressive company. It's actually a company that is backed by Warren Buffett. So even though they're based in China, it's really a world or a global corporation, as all of these auto companies really are today, but based in China. And just like the cell phone batteries that got them started and gave them a foothold worldwide, BYD is a company that focuses on undercutting the competition. They have products starting at a very low price point. Specifically, they have a vehicle called the Seagull, and it has a price point starting at about $10,000.
The sky, the tide, fireworks and fireflies. Where is the light? Where does it shine? It warms the air, brings life, and awakens hope. The light itself leads to the answers. We are eager for breakthroughs with no fear of limits. Believe in striving and never compromise. Yearning for a green and great future. Pursuing the waves of freedom. with diligence and wisdom, we start a new journey to pursue the light. And tomorrow becomes a new starting point. Changing our life through efforts, solving the puzzle with technology, safeguarding the innocence of children, redefining the journey of romance. Time shall be cherished. Dreams should be loved. Make your dreams come true. Keep exploring the world together. Move toward and strive for the halo. BYD, technology, green future.
So BYD, big company already and growing bigger by the day. A lot of competition out there. A lot. I don't know what the future is going to look like for our kids, man. This election coming up, this presidential election, is going to be perhaps the most consequential of our time, I think. Everything seems so volatile, and yes, indeed, we do have these protests lined up for next week. It seems like even things on the U.S. side are unstable right now. And yeah, I think a lot of it is because of what's going on online. But it isn't just what's happening on the internet and cyberspace. There are real shifts happening around the world. You know, they're not really talking about what's going on in the Red Sea right now, but I am aware that really shipping has been pretty much disrupted there, if not brought to it's almost non-existent in many respects because of the Houthi attacks. So that's affecting global shipping in a pretty substantial way, resulting in delays and increased costs, disrupting supply chains. And then, you know, the other area that I mentioned this several months ago, because in Panama, there's a lot of turmoil right now. There was a Canadian company down there, a mining company, that was at the center of a major political backlash. The issue ultimately surrounded questions about resource management, mining, who should own it. A lot of, you know, I would say people on the left side jacked up, calling for the nationalization, basically, of resources. And this Canadian company, at the center of all this controversy, it was putting the existence of the sitting government in jeopardy, honestly. And I know that there's a lot of political pressure and a lot of political posturing going on down there, not just because of immigration, but also because of trade in the Panama Canal, which is a vital piece of infrastructure for the U.S. economy. Without that canal, ships have to go all the way, long way around. Adds a lot of time and expense. And I know that the Chinese are very focused on the Panama Canal. And there's positioning taking place down there. And I'm seeing just things happening in Panama that tell me that we should all be just keeping that region on our radar. It's like there's something big going to happen down there. Just take note of that. We'll probably be coming back to that in the weeks ahead. So that gets us almost to the bottom of the hour and almost time for me to wrap up for the night. If somebody wants to call, you can call at 519-401-1373, but we only have a few minutes left in the broadcast, and I didn't get to the phones until quite late here. I did want to kind of try to close this something a little bit light tonight, so let me see what I have queued up here. I think we can actually go live here to the Poilievre. Yeah, he's out in Winnipeg right now. Let's pick up his live address right now. He's live. Here we go. Okay, we're going to pick this up. This is the Poilievre rally in Winnipeg, so we can run this for you right now. The Axe the Tax rally. Here we go.
Them better off. He claims they get more in these rebates than they pay in the. But here's what the parliamentary budget officer said. I brought the documents. These are his calculations. And here in Manitoba, this year, the average Manitoba family will spend $1,750 on federal carbon taxes and get back only $1,248 for a net loss of $502. That is actually the good news. Now are you ready for the bad news? If Trudeau and the NDP are reelected in their carbon tax coalition over the next 5.5 years, they intend to quadruple the carbon tax. All the way to 61 cents a liter. And that will bring a cost to Manitoba families of $3,564 with a rebate of only $2,000 for a net cost after rebates of $1,500. How many people do you know in Brandon or in Winnipeg or in Churchill or in the Paw who can afford to spend another $1,500 net on taxes? And it gets worse. On top of that $1,500 net carbon tax increase, they want a second carbon tax. They call it the Clean Fuel Standard, which has no rebate at all, which will mean hundreds of dollars of additional costs. My friends, this will mean thousands of dollars in increased costs for families right across Manitoba. And that doesn't even take into account the small businesses who have no rebate at all. They are the drivers of our economy. They are 90% plus of the employers in our country. And they're paying the carbon tax on their heat, their energy, their inputs, their transportation, money that they have to take off of the paychecks of their workers or put on the prices for their consumers. That's going to destroy the small business economy that is so central to the people of Manitoba. Manitobans are known for entrepreneurship. Small businesses are the backbone of this province, and they will be hammered the hardest by this tax, the tax that has no compensation to them. They were lied to. Trudeau and the NDP said there'd be some sort of a refund for small business. And yet, here we are, a half a decade after the tax came in, not one penny has been refunded to our small businesses. Another carbon tax lie. This will mean that young people who are coming out of school can't get that first job that they're looking to get. That means that people who are hanging on by a thread might get laid off because of the job-killing tax. And then there's the farmers. This is a farming province. Here we are in the prairies. God bless our farmers. The farmers who feed us are paying, if you have a 5,000-acre farm, you pay $150,000 in the forthcoming carbon tax increase. $150,000 for our farmers that their competitors in the United States and in other countries around the world will not face, forcing more of our production out of this country and more costs on the back of the people who pay the bills. And still, the Liberals want to increase the tax while we are struggling to feed our families. We now have, let's just review how bad things have gotten after 8 years of Trudeau. We have 2 million visits to a food bank in a single month. We expect the number of people going to food banks next year will go up by a full million. Our food banks are running out of food. A third of charities are turning people away because they do not have the resources to feed them. 8,000 Canadians have signed up for a Facebook group called the dumpster diving network where they share tips on how to eat out of a garbage can because they can't get food from the grocery store or from the food bank after 8 years of Trudeau. The suffering and poverty does not even end at death anymore. In Newfoundland and Labrador, a tragic story of 28 dead bodies sitting outside of a hospital in refrigerators that look like shipping containers because their loved ones cannot afford to give them a burial or a cremation. 28 bodies sitting next to a dumpster. That is how desperate things have gotten after 8 years of Trudeau and the NDP and the members of the federal NDP who sold out their constituents to sign up for Trudeau. Crime, chaos, drugs and disorder are common in our streets. Our people are spilling over into tent cities, forced to live in encampments that resemble something out of the Great Depression or a third world country. My friends, when we look around our country today and we see the suffering of our fellow citizens, we can only conclude that Justin Trudeau is not worth the cost, not worth the crime, not worth the corruption, and not worth the country we know and still love. The good news is life was not like this before Justin Trudeau, and it will not be like this after he's gone. There will be a carbon tax election during which Manitobans will choose between a costly coalition of Trudeau and the NDP, who tax your food, punish your work, take your money, double your housing costs, and unleash crime and chaos in your community, or common sense conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. And let me talk about that common sense government. Let me talk about what it means and what the carbon tax symbolizes about that common sense government. The carbon tax is not just about axing the tax. It's not just about lowering your daily prices. It's about bringing home production and paychecks to this country. It is about making us an independent and strong economy that can provide for itself and its people and become less reliant on undependable and dictatorial regimes around the world. You see, the Liberals and NDP want more of our resources, more of what we consume to be provided by faraway dictatorships, even though we could be producing these things at home. Let's start with agriculture. Let's start with agriculture. By raising the cost of agricultural production, we drive food growth and harvesting out of our country to other places. I'll start with the example of Suntech tomatoes, the little miracles of Manotick, a wonderful farm in my riding. They grow tomatoes in greenhouses, but Trudeau's carbon tax applies on the CO2 they release into the greenhouse, even though it's absorbed by the plant life. Apparently he missed that day in science class. The price signal that sends is that it's more affordable to buy the Mexican tomato in Manotick than the Manotick tomato in Manotick. By axing the tax, we'll lower the cost of production so that we can have more homegrown food. We'll remove the unnecessary and punitive regulations that punish our producers. There'll be less paperwork, less obstructions, and therefore more food production, and we will feed our own people and stand on our own feet. We will end the attack on our resource sector by repealing the unconstitutional No More Resources Law C-69. And we'll bring in a law. We're going to bring in a law that protects our environment, consults First Nations, but gets decisions made. It should no longer take 18 years to get a mine approved in this country. We will shorten those timelines. And we will bring mining of lithium, cobalt, graphite, more copper, and other critical minerals of the future back to this country and put paychecks back in the pockets of our people. We will back up our oil and gas sector. The Western economy, including indirectly and in some cases in parts of the province directly, Manitoba does rely on the strength of a strong oil and gas sector because, of course, Manitoba is thoroughly integrated with Saskatchewan and Alberta, and there is an oil sector in this province itself. The anti-pipelines, anti-oil and gas law C-69 takes money away from Manitobans and gives it to dirty dictators abroad. My common sense government will approve pipelines, oil sands mines, and other energy projects. We'll back up Newfoundland's plan to double its production to fully replace all of the overseas oil that we're bringing in from Saudi Arabia and Nigeria. And then there's natural gas. We have 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas right beneath our feet. Gas that could help Asia break its dependence on coal-fired electricity. Imagine that. Imagine actually using our energy resources as a solution to environmental problems, right? Here's the math. Right now, Canada is responsible for about 1.5% of global emissions. That's nothing compared to India and China, who are adding coal-fired plants week after week. In India, they plan to double their coal production between now and 2030. So think about this for a second. Our total emissions in Canada are 0.7 billion tons of CO2. If we were to sell our gas to India and allow them to displace the dirty coal-fired production with cleaner Canadian gas, we could reduce global emissions by 2.5 billion. That is 3 times the total emissions of all of Canada in a year. So why don't we cool that gas down to minus 161 degrees, put it on a ship to Asia to break Asian dependence on coal, and ship it off to Europe to break European dependence on Putin, to turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people in this country. And then there's the Port of Churchill. We need to open up the Port of Churchill to all the minerals and commodities the world needs. This could make Manitoba into almost a maritime province. And what an incredible way to take advantage of this strategic location. We should open it up to future exports of all energy, including oil. There's proposals by major energy companies in Alberta to encapsulate oil into puck-size droplets that can go by train and then be put on ships and sent off around the world during the shipping seasons. We could potentially even liquefy natural gas there using the cold weather as an engineering advantage. There are agricultural commodities that could make their way to the world, but we need to streamline and eliminate the bureaucracy that makes everything get possible. Common sense. Common sense is right, and we're going to make common sense common again, aren't we? Who's ready to make common sense common? Who's ready to axe the tax? Thank you. By developing our resources, we can bring home powerful paychecks, and we need powerful paychecks now more than ever, with rising costs and greater need. With our economy less productive than our competitors, what we need is bigger and better paychecks for our people. And one of the ways we can get them is to allow our brilliant immigrants the opportunity to work in their professions. We have 20,000 immigrant doctors and 32,000 immigrant nurses blocked from working in our hospitals because they have no direct path to prove their qualifications. Meanwhile, Canadians sit in emergency rooms for 24 hours at a time while there are doctors and nurses that could help them. The Filipino ambassador told me that 85% of Filipino nurses are blocked from working in their field because they can't get a license. Meanwhile, they could go to the States, take a test, an international exam, and get to work in 2 weeks. We have had a red seal in the trades for 70 years. The federal government brought together the provinces in 1952 and said, a mechanic is a mechanic, an electrician is an electrician. Let's get one testing standard. Let's get people licensed and working. My common sense plan is to bring in a blue seal so that our immigrant doctors, nurses, and engineers can take a test, prove they're qualified, get to work. Let's bring jobs for our Filipino nurses. Right on. Powerful paychecks, and I'm also going to continue to stand up right across the country to urge all the provinces to end the vaccine mandates so we can bring back all the nurses. Bring back all our medical professionals. We want more powerful paychecks for our working people, the people who move stuff, fix stuff, and build stuff, the tradespeople. We need more boots, not just more suits in this economy. And that means giving tax fairness to tradespeople. Right now, a CEO can write off the cost of his private jet, but a working a working electrician or mechanic can't write off the cost of his transportation. That's why common sense conservatives will pass the Tax Fairness for Traveling Trades Workers Act so that you can write off the full cost of your food, transportation, and accommodation to go around the country doing the work of building the nation. And we're going to make work pay. We have a war on work in Canada today. Work is punished. There's a great meme of a little guy sitting next to his dad in a park, and he says to his dad, "What is a tax form?" And his dad turns over to him and says, "It's the opposite of your school report card. The better you do, the more you get punished." That's income tax, right? We punish hard work in Canada. A single mom earning $60,000 a year with 3 kids who earns an extra dollar loses 80 cents to clawbacks of her child benefit, income tax, payroll tax, and other taxes needed for her to do her job. That means if she earns $25 an hour, works an extra hour, she loses 20 of those dollars, and she's effectively making a $5 an hour wage. No one should be forced to work for $5. $5 an hour is well below minimum wage, and that's why common sense conservatives will cut income taxes to make work pay. Make work pay. Axe the tax. Axe the tax, absolutely. We're going to axe the tax to bring home more and a lower price. And at the same time, we're going to stand on the side of people who build the homes by getting the government bureaucracy out of the way so that we can get the permits for those projects to go ahead. After 8 years of Trudeau and the NDP, housing costs have doubled. This is because we have the fewest homes per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have by far the most land to build on, and we spend the largest share of our GDP on residential construction. So let's get this straight. How is it that we spend twice as much as the OECD average on residential construction? We have by far the most land per capita and in absolute terms of any of those countries, and we have the fewest homes per capita. Why? Bureaucracy. Bureaucracy stands in the way. In Vancouver, the cost of a building permit, all in, is $1.3 million per home. Per home. In Toronto, it's $350,000. In the GTA, they've raised development charges by 900%. In Montreal, the city has blocked 25,000 homes. And in Winnipeg, the city has blocked 2,000, maybe 7,000 citywide, but 2,000 homes right next to a transit station that was built for those homes because apparently the councillor said his constituents didn't want to have neighbors. They lost out in court. But what's the point of building the transit station if you're not going to build homes right next to it? We cannot shut an entire generation of young people out of the dream of home ownership because NIMBYs and gatekeepers have blocked the building. My common sense plan will require municipalities to permit 15% more home
What the heck just happened?
completions
There we go.
per year as a condition of getting federal infrastructure money. If cities beat that target, they will get a building bonus. They miss the target, they'll pay a fine. It'll be strictly proportional to the amount by which they beat or miss the target. Realtors are paid for the number of homes they sell, builders for the number they build. I think municipalities should be paid federal dollars for the number of homes they permit. Let's pay for results. We're going to require that every federally funded transit station be surrounded by appropriately large apartment complexes. The reason why Hong Kong has the only profitable transit station system in the world, it doesn't get any government money, it's a publicly traded company that runs the entire system, is because they build on top of the stations. They literally sell the air rights over the stations so that they can make money from the developers to pay for the transit. And then people can get on the elevator in their apartment and go right down to the bottom, jump on the train, leave late and arrive early because it's right there. So here's how it's going to work when I'm Prime Minister. If I fund transit, I'm going to put the money in a trust fund. And the city will not get the money until there are permitted, completed, and occupied apartments all around every station. That's how we're going to get the gatekeepers out of the way and build. We're going to sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to build, build, build. And you know, it warms my heart to think of the beautiful family rolling up in their U-Haul to move into their brand new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. That always gets the biggest applause. Who wants one of those condos in the CBC headquarters? Anybody? All right. This guy over here was the first to put up his hand, so we'll give him a t-shirt. There you go. You win a t-shirt. Fantastic. I wasn't looking. Okay, fine. You get an apple. There you go. You know, they say an apple a day keeps the woke journalists away. I accidentally hit a lady in the head when I was throwing the apple yesterday. So I promise you got to be careful. You got to be careful when you come to these things. Okay. Oh, he's got a Rough Rider's hat on there. Oh, he's got a Rough Rider's hat. A brave guy here. He protected himself a little bit. I come from Calgary, which of course is the hometown of the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. You ever grow up? If you ever go to a game at the McMahon Stadium, there's more green than red. That's the truth. God bless our Saskatchewan neighbors. Great people in Saskatchewan, eh? Yeah, the great people. Contrary to popular mythology in central Canada, you can't actually see Saskatoon from Winnipeg, but the two provinces are very good friends, and they share the same common sense values of building the axing the tax, building the homes, fixing the budget, and stopping the crime, which brings me to my next issue, which is fixing the budget. The federal budget is around the corner, and they're running monstrous deficits. Justin Trudeau has printed $600 billion of cash in the last 3 years alone. This is a 32% increase in the money supply, during which time the economy only grew by 4%. In other words, we're growing the money in this economy 8 times faster than the stuff that money buys. That doesn't make us richer. Money is simply the technology by which we transfer value over space and time. And that's why Ted Falk was one of the first to warn in Canada's Finance Committee that we'd have inflation when they started creating cash. He knew, like we all know, that this is an old experiment that's done again and again with the same results. When kings, queens, presidents, prime ministers create cash to fund their sumptuous spending, they do not make us richer. They only make everything more expensive. If you have an economy with $10 and 10 apples, it's $1 an apple. If you double the number of dollars to 20, but you still only have 10 apples, you're not twice as rich. It's just each apple costs twice as much. That's what happens when you create cash. It's just inflation, just inflation. And now they want to go forward and push another deficit on our people, which drives up the cost of borrowing, as many people are worried about losing their homes. That's why we need a common sense plan to balance the budget, and this is it. We'll bring in a dollar-for-dollar law requiring the government find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending so that we can discipline the state. We'll cut waste and mismanagement, like getting rid of the $35 billion infrastructure bank that hasn't completed a single infrastructure project, the $1 billion so-called green fund that has not actually done any green technology but has misappropriated 15% of its budget to liberal and bureaucratic insiders. We'll get rid of the $60 million Arrive scam app. You believe this app? It was supposed to cost 80 grand, and yet your local NDP and Liberal federal MPs voted to give it 60 million. You'd think the NDP members of Parliament would ask some questions. If there was an $80,000 app and Justin Trudeau came to them and said, I need your vote to spend $60 million on it. But they didn't. They stood up. Manitoba NDP members of Parliament voted to raise the cost to Manitobans by funding this ridiculous app. Let's get their names here. Who are they? Who are they? I don't even know who they are. Can you name them? Who do we have here? Who are they? Somebody's supposed to give me a list. They're not recognizable. I don't really notice them. They kind of fade into the wallpaper. Ted, do you know who they are? Who are they? Nikki Ashton, Leah Gazan. Who else? Daniel Blakey. What have they been doing for you? Voting to hike your taxes. Here I do have them. Nikki Ashton, Daniel Blakey, Leah Gazan. They voted to give $60 million to the Arrive-Cano app. They're voting to hike your carbon tax. I understand there's even a by-election coming up in Winnipeg, Transcona, right? What's that? Elmwood, Transcona. Elmwood, Transcona. So people in this community are going to be able to decide whether they want a member of the costly coalition that will vote to hike your tax, take your money, punish your work, double your housing costs, or whether you're ready to have a member of Parliament who will vote to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. You need a strong, independent voice on Parliament Hill who will do that. And we'll stand up to eliminate the wasteful spending so that we can balance the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates and income tax so that you bring home more of each dollar you earn and hard work actually pays off. But to bring it home, you need to have a home in a safe neighborhood. And after 8 years of Trudeau and the NDP, people are scared to walk outside of their homes. We have a 100% increase in gang killings. The number of gun crimes has gone up by over 100%. And now we learn that Trudeau and the NDP spent, because of good work exposed by our very own Senator Plett from Manitoba, they've spent $40 million on this gun grab, and they haven't even succeeded in buying a single gun back from Canadians. Isn't this insane? They're going after licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested firearms owners who are vetted by the RCMP. The least likely people to commit a crime are being singled out for abuse and harassment by their very own government, and at great expense. Common sense conservatives will reverse the gun grab and respect the rights of law-abiding hunters and sport shooters. And we'll use the billions of dollars that saves to reinforce our borders and our ports. 80% of the gun crime is guns brought in illegally from the United States of America. The car theft is the result of ports that are unsecured. Right now, we inspect 1% of the shipping containers that come in and go out. There are only 5 inspectors for 500,000 containers at the Port of Montreal. One guy came and saw me from Brampton, told me that he put a air tag in his car because he knew his car would be stolen, given that he lives in Brampton, and he wanted to be able to track it. sure enough, he woke up a few weeks later, walked out the front door to go to work, and no car in the driveway. So he opened up his app and he said, oh, look, my car is somewhere on the train line between Toronto and Montreal. It's headed to Montreal, where the criminals are going to put it on a ship. So he called the police in Montreal. They said, we don't have jurisdiction. Then he called the port. They said, sorry, we don't have the resources to look into it. So he got in his car and he drove to Montreal. He got there about the same time as the shipping container. He jumped over the fence and walked up to the dot that was on his phone. And he said to himself, that shipping container looks like the dot on my phone. That's where my car is. CBSA came running over to him. Apparently they had officials to run up to this guy. They said, what are you doing here? He said, oh, I'm just trying to get my car back. It was stolen. It's in that box up there. I thank God you're here. Maybe you can help me. They said, no, we're not going to help you. We're giving you a fine for being illegally on this property. So he said, well, at least I'll pay the fine, but can I just have my car back? They said, sorry, we don't have the resources. We're just going to have to let it go. So the train rolled up to the ship, and a big hand came down and picked up that container and put it on the ship, and it went off into the Atlantic to be sold off to terrorists and other gangsters in the Middle East, in Europe, or in Africa. And so we have one car stolen every 40 minutes. And the Liberals and NDP solution to that is to ban Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle and to give house arrest to career car thieves. House arrest, so that they can sit there. They can sit there watching Netflix in their living room or playing Grand Theft Auto while they technically do their sentence. Common sense conservatives are going to get rid of house arrest, parole, and bail for repeat offenders. It will be jail, not bail. Jail, not bail. It'll be jail, not bail. And we're going to rescue our loved ones from the horrendous scourge of this drug addiction crisis. After we've had 40,000 of our loved ones die, after corrupt big pharma companies pushed these pharmaceuticals onto North American families, lying, saying that the drugs were non-addictive and non-lethal. They called it OxyContin. They made a fortune. They even paid their distributors bonuses for every overdose death they caused. And yet, they made a grand fortune. And now that we have this opioid crisis, what is the solution that the NDP and Liberals put forward? They call it safe supply. What are they giving out as a safe supply? Oh, right, pharmaceutical opioids, bought from the same corrupt pharmaceutical companies that caused the crisis in the first place. My common sense plan is to stop giving out free drugs, end the decriminalization of crack and other hard drugs, and instead put the money into recovery and treatment so that we can bring our loved ones home drug-free. We'll model it after the great success of the Oak Center right here in Winnipeg. What a beautiful center, created by a father who lost a son. And there, young men can go get detox, counseling, group therapy, sweat lodges for First Nations, yoga, physical exercise, job preparation. As they come out of the program, they are able to go into a neighboring housing complex in the future where they will transition back, but can always come in for another counseling session, a workout, or maybe to even mentor an incoming addict. This is the hopeful future. My message to anyone who's suffering from addiction is that you are not alone. We as conservatives will be with you. We will be by your side until you get well, because our country and your family needs you. And I said that we'd have a dollar-for-dollar law, right? So I'll tell you how we're going to pay for it. We are going to sue those corrupt pharmaceutical companies and make them pay. It's about bringing home our freedom. We want to make this the freest country on earth. All that we have, all that is special about Canada is the result of that freedom. You know, there's nothing special about the air we breathe or the water we drink that has made Canada such an incredible country. We're the same people as the rest of the world. In fact, we're a reflection of the rest of the world because our people come from all over the world. So why has Canada been such a wonderful place to live up until quite recently? The answer is that we had freedom, that we let people run their own lives. The government was the servant and the people were the master. And along came a guy who said he admires China's basic communist dictatorship. He admires the great, in his words, the great revolutionary leader Fidel Castro. He wanted to censor what you said online. He seized the bank accounts of law-abiding people who were trying to speak up for their freedom. Now he's got this law where he wants to be able to put you under house arrest, not just for something you've said, but for something you might say in the future. Can you imagine that? This is beyond Orwellian. He, actually, speaking of Orwell, I think he'd read 1984 and he thought it was an instruction manual rather than a warning. But common sense conservatives take a different approach. We understand that the people are the master, that we should have the maximum amount of freedom. And that's why I will repeal the censorship law C-11 and let you speak freely. There will be no central bank digital currency. There will be no mandatory digital ID. We will ban all the federal COVID mandates. And we will ban all of my ministers and MPs from any involvement in the World Economic Forum. We will ban the terrorist group, the IRGC, and kick out its 700 agents from our country. And recognize that the guarantors of our freedom are the brave men and women in uniform. We will cut back on foreign aid to terrorist dictators and international bureaucracies and put the money into rebuilding our military. This is about putting people back in charge of their lives. The people have been made to feel small, that they are not able to make their own decisions and run their own lives. We're told that we need to listen to the so-called experts, the people that helped Justin Trudeau make the mess in the first place. These people look down from above in their ivory towers and say that we can't trust the ordinary people. The ordinary people. Well, I've spent the last 3 years traveling the country, shaking hands and meeting with these so-called ordinary people. And let me tell you, my friends, there's nothing ordinary about them. They are extraordinary. The waitress who balances 8 plates on a tray and serves 15 tough customers at a time, works a back-to-back shift, then comes home to teach her kid math and balances her budget on a minimum wage salary is not ordinary. She is extraordinary, my friend. The farmers who harvest the crops of Manitoba, who master the sciences of sky and soil to bring food from their fields to our forks are not ordinary, they are extraordinary. The electricians who capture lightning from the sky, run it through a copper wire to illuminate this room and light up this world are not ordinary. They too are extraordinary. The soldiers, sailors, and airmen that leave their families behind to defend us in a dangerous world, who know the discipline, the hard work, and the courage to stare down any fear. These are not ordinary people, they are extraordinary. And therein is the philosophical difference. I believe that you, the extraordinary people, have the wisdom and the virtue to make your own decisions, to run your own lives, to spend your own money. in Canada, the freest country in the world, led by the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
There you go. I'll just pull that down so we don't get a copyright strike on that. So Poilievre wrapping up his Axe the Tax rally down there in Winnipeg. Oh, we can pull out of that. There we are. And that is a prelude of things to come. Sort of a teaser for, I would say, this weekend. We're going to see protests across the country, certainly on Monday, on April 1st, when the carbon tax increase hits. And I guess it's going to hit pretty hard. You'll see increases at the pump, increases in home heating costs, increases in all kinds of carbon-based energy. And that's really what keeps us warm and keeps us mobile. It'll add cost to every single thing that we consume. More on that over the weekend and on Monday. And with that being said, we are wrapping up for the night. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there. And it was good to pick up the Axe the Tax rally in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We will be back tomorrow night with more Maverick news and ongoing coverage of the Axe the Tax weekend. Tomorrow's Friday, right? So that'll be sort of a prelude of things to come again for the coming weekend. Yeah. Every day I wake up and I say, what can we possibly be covering in the news today? And by the time we get to 6 p.m., we have a full slate of stories every single night. Never a slow news day. I will be back 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Love you guys. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. An absolute privilege. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.